folks, welcome to Board Game Breakfast for January 6th, 2014. Well, first of all, Kickstarter. Last week I talked a lot about Kickstarter, asking you to get involved in our Kickstarter, and there is no Kickstarter. That is definitely on Kickstarter's head. Kickstarter is very slow in response. I submitted the project the previous Friday, and they've sent me 2 emails. As soon as they send an email, I responded within 30 minutes each time, and then they waited an entire day for the next email. So it is not. I'm not very happy with Kickstarter at the present, and all this so that they can take 10% of the thing. I may not use Kickstarter next year, and if they can't get the project up in the next few days, I'm not going to use them this year either, because the fundraising project is very important to the Dice Tower, and having long delays like this does nobody any good. So anyhow, when it does go up, we'll mention it on Twitter and Facebook and our website and on our guild at Board Game Geek. So hopefully you'll see it somewhere. I'll probably put an extra video up here on this channel announcing that fact too. This past weekend we did a live 24-hour event. We broke it up into 4 videos that are about 6 hours each, and you can watch that. Some interesting things there. First of all, when you see these videos, most of the videos we do here, they're not scripted. I just have some notes here of things that I'm going to say. Usually I don't have everything written out, but if I make a mistake, or in fact this is not the first time that I'm recording this segment right now, because I can go back and fix things. If a loud noise happens or something, or I mess up and blah, 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 I can fix it and come back. You can't do that live. Not to mention, when you do something for 24 hours live, you see real human nature come. This is what the reality shows thrive on, because the people have these cameras on and they forget the cameras are there after a while, and they put them in situations where they tend to get irritated with one another. But overall, I thought it was a positive experience. We certainly had our 2 highest view days of the year. I believe Saturday we had 70,000 views of our videos, which is a record for us in one day. Well, it was very exciting. And we had a lot of good feedback. I am going to do this in the future with some changes, of course. We learn. I think obviously the biggest change is I'm going to be doing it in smaller chunks. 24 hours, it was just entirely too long for me. We made it, but it was barely. But I will do it smaller chunks, do a few games at a time as we record them. And also maybe, I don't know, just do some few games. Tell everyone what the games are ahead of time. I didn't want to do that during the 24-hour thing because I didn't want us to be tied to a schedule that would then fall behind by hours or get moved up. And so it was kind of an experiment, and I think it mostly worked. So for those of you wondering about Jason, and Jason is a member of our gaming group. He wins almost every game he plays. He is never shy about letting people know that. He's a very interesting character, and so we give him grief all the time. And it is not a thing of meanness. It is something that if it really bothered him, we would immediately stop doing. And that certainly did not come out well in the Live 24. It certainly would not come out well if you did not know him at all. So there was that. Nobody went home mad at each other. I think we were a little grumpy near the end, went home tired, but we're getting together tomorrow to play games. Anyhow, that was a very long introduction. Let's get to the news. Right, in the news, let's see. First of all, the new website started. I don't know if it started last week, but it started in the last couple weeks, and that's BoardGameLinks.com. And I mention this because you can go there and vote for your favorite board gaming sites. And I'm not asking you to go there and vote up the Dice Tower. It was currently number 2 position. Board Game Geek's in number 1. That seems pretty good to me. But I think you should go in there for a couple reasons. If you have websites you like, you should vote them up because the cream will rise to the top. But also, there's a ton of great links there, and it's really good. You can look through. They have the links listed by publishers, and they have links for online game stores. They have links for just general gaming sites and blogs and podcasts. It's a very useful site. Let's see. Matago has announced that there's going to be a second expansion for Cyclades. They're saying it's going to be a Titanic expansion. Now, I'm assuming that means there will be Titans in, because all we know is that and this picture. AEG mentioned this earlier in December, and I can't believe I missed this because I've known about it for a while. I've been bugging them, and that's their newest expansion for Thunderstone Advance, Worlds Collide. Essentially, if you remember, if you've been playing Thunderstone Advance was like a revamped version of Thunderstone, and so it had a new card design and a few rule changes. Well, you could still mix the old cards and the new cards together, but there was a few minor differences, and it just doesn't look that good when you combine them together. Well, that's what this is going to be. They're going to be taking the best cards from the previous Thunderstones and adding them back in and even maybe refining a few of them. Looking forward to that. Fantasy Flight has told us a little bit more about their upcoming ships for the X-Wing Miniatures game, and that's Imperial Aces. I'm very excited about this because a lot of people have been kind of giving them grief about that these are just the ships with a new paint job, which is what, most of these things are anyway. I don't see how that's a big deal. I think they look pretty cool myself, but these new pilots that are involved in this are really awesome. Like this Lieutenant Lorr, I can't even pronounce his name, Lorrir, but he can move to the side. A lot of the pilots have that ability, but he can use a curve template to do that. Another pilot can choose his speed after he sees what's going on. Another of the Imperial Aces can stop the Rebel pilots. I mean, when this set comes out, I think the people who like playing the Rebels are going to cry foul because these guys are really cool. Luke Skywalker is going to die a lot. Common Man Games has told me that they are going to break a world record, they think, for delivering Kickstarter rewards for their campaign. I believe it's for the second edition of Police Precinct. They said they plan to have the first copy in a backer's hand in less than 30 minutes, beating Domino's Pizza back in the old days. I think that it will take longer than that for everybody to get the rewards, but it's interesting. I was looking at a list of games that are coming out soon, and Rio Grande sent a list out, and on that list, I found it fascinating. It's several games, of course, that we would expect to see a Rio Grande doing, but I did not know they were putting out more of the GIF series. Now, they mentioned GIF, Zerts, Devon, and Yinch. Those are the probably four most popular of the series, and so it's really good. Those are great games. Glad to see those back out in the market. Small World, there's going to be a 6-player map available soon. If you watched our 24-hour feed that we did over the weekend, we actually played on that map, so that's coming out. Ares Magazine is a new magazine that's starting up. It's a science fiction kind of magazine, but also with war. The first issue has a board game in it, War of the Worlds by Bill Banks. Now, this is on Kickstarter, but it will be interesting when this comes out to see if this print magazine can do well. Today we're going to combine upcoming releases with things that have been released last week because there's only one upcoming release that I know that's coming out this week, and that is Sails of Glory. This is from Ares Game. It's the game that's like their Wings of Glory, the airplane one, but this is one of them with ships. It came out on Kickstarter last year, and it should be released this week. Games that have been released that you might want to check out: the expansion for Firefly, Breaking Atmos, the Study of Emerald, Martin Wallace game. A lot of people were very excited about this one. There's also some things on Cool Stuff, which is where all the games that have come out I'm talking about. There's some sets from the Meeple Source where they make different meeples and things. In fact, they'll have some stuff in our upcoming Kickstarter campaign. But they have little sets of components, and one in particular I like is the Cave Farmers one. It's used with Caverna. Now, Caverna already has fantastic components, but I bought these for my game to make it look nicer. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. Warhammer Disc Wars from Fantasy Flight has been released. And Caverna and Robinson Crusoe, although it's kind of mean of me to mention both of those because they seem to have sold out immediately. But at least in the instance of Caverna, I expect we'll see more of those within a month. Robinson Crusoe, who knows when we'll see that again, but hopefully they'll keep coming out since both those games appear to be incredibly popular. So that's what has been released last week. Let's go to Canada.
Books always tell you the author's name on the front cover. Movies will actually tell you the cast, the director, screenwriters, other contributors. Board games, not so much. A lot of the really popular ones will not even tell you the designer's name. I can tell you right now, the person who designed Monopoly did not have a brother named Parker. Why is it that board games are the only entertainment form out there where the publisher can take all of the credit and give none to the creators? Now, we know why they'd want to do this. They want people to associate the game with the company. But here's the thing, that's not how it works. Nobody goes to the movie theater thinking, yeah, sure, I'm excited to see the new movie by Touchstone Pictures, because people don't do that. They go looking for movies with actors and directors and writers who they like, and that's why these studios have figured out that it's a good idea to give credit where credit is due, besides being basic human decency. Now, the hobby game manufacturers, sort of niche people, all the little publishers from AEG to Z-Man, they figured out that it's a good idea to put the author's name, the designer's name, on the front of the box. It just makes sense. And if you open up those boxes, you look inside, you'll find that there are credits in there for artists, developers, even play testers, as it should be. But why do the big companies get away with it? Why can some of these mainstream board game manufacturers get away with seemingly having a company policy of not giving credit to a single human being who's involved in the creation of that game? The answer, of course, is because mainstream board game buyers let them get away with it. And it's time we put a stop to that. We, the hobby game players, the people who understand that board games are designed by people, and that not giving credit where credit is due is just foul play. And speaking of credit where credit is due, thanks and apologies to Rick Mercer. This is such a great format.
We started 2014 off with a bang for you. I believe I posted 20 videos last week. I don't know if I'll be able to get 20 out this week, but there are some videos that you will see from me. For example, you'll see the 6-player or the new expansion for King of Tokyo. I've been wanting to show that one off. I'll most definitely probably be showing off Northwest Passage, the expansion for Among the Stars, the new 8-Minute Empire Legends, the expansion Getting Sacked for Last Will, and possibly some of the other ones here. If you're wondering why Theseus is taking a while, it's because so far all my games with it have been with 4 players, and I suspect that a 2-player game of it is going to really change the way I look at it. So if I can get those in this week, you'll see Theseus. If not, you might have to wait till next week. Also, I have quite a few reviews coming from my contributors. I believe I have 8 or 9 of those. So this will not be a week of nothing, that's for sure. So that's what's coming out from the Dice Tower. Let's go talk to Scott.
Hi there everyone, this is Scott Nicholson and welcome to the Ivory Dice Tower. It's an exploration of some of the concepts of games in the Academy. Last week I talked a little bit about play and the concepts of play, and I teased out that I was going to talk about how I used the concepts of play when I developed my auction game Going, Going, Gone. Now, the thing about this game is one player who plays the role of the auctioneer counts down from 10 to 1. They can count down at any pace they want to, and then when they're done counting, the auction is over. And while the person is counting, everyone has little markers that represent their money. And they're busy throwing their markers into cups in the middle of the table that represent things that they can bid on. That's basically the game. Now, I did a few things in this game design out of the concepts of play. In order to create a playful space, I had to give up some of my control as a game designer. I had to decide I was not going to completely control the experience that was going on, but instead, I was going to give the user the ability to make some of those choices, the ability to control some of those things. In which case, there's a few ways I do that. The first is through the counting, is by allowing the auctioneer to be able to count at a pace of their choosing. That creates a playful space. That allows the player to create the boundaries in which the game will be played. And that allows that player to get a little bit more engaged with what's going on. It makes the experience of the group, instead of the experience I'm trying to force upon the group. Now, I know that there's an app coming out which allows you to have a countdown happen at different fixed speeds, slow, medium, fast, or random. But even that takes away that ability for a player to create the space, to create those rules. And the thing that's interesting about play and boundaries is sometimes play is the most fun when those boundaries are pushed or even broken. That happens in my game when I will watch people play and they'll get ready and they'll count, and they don't really say anything. It's still within the spirit of the game, but they've really pushed that boundary, but it creates a laughing space. It creates a space that people laugh. And if they don't laugh, they're not having fun about that. Well, then the group can generate rules to deal with that situation. There are a lot of rules I did not generate about that game. I didn't generate rules about how a bid must be placed, about what is legal as far as, can you just cover up a cup with your hand? Can you hold your hands over the cup and block cups? I didn't put those rules in there because I wanted that to be emergent on the group. There's a similar game called Johann Sebastian Joust, or JS Joust. It's a video game where people hold controllers, and if they jiggle their controller, it goes off and they're knocked out of a round. And the goal is to run around and shove people's controllers to get their controllers to jiggle. And that's it. There's no other rules to the game. So is it legal to take your shoe off and throw it at someone's controller? Well, it might be. And that's what I wanted with this game. I wanted a space where the group could emerge the play space they wanted to create. So if a group wanted to be completely physical and allow you to do anything you could do to try and keep people from throwing bids in the cups, go for it. If you wanted to drink while you play, go for it. If you wanted to throw the cubes across the room, go for it. I wanted to make a plaything with some basic rules and structure that people can then change and really make their own. And that's how play affected Going, Going, Gone. That's all for this week. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
One Hit Wonders is a series in which I talk about games that were on my top 100 lists for just 1 year, and then you didn't see them again. And as I always say in these lists, that almost always means that I still like the game, it just isn't in my top 100 for any sort of reason. Today we're going to talk about a gigantic warish game, and that is Tide of Iron. Tide of Iron was released from Fantasy Flight Games and came in a huge box. The giant boxes, in fact, of these giant boxes, I now no longer have any of them because they took up so much room in my collection, and some of them, like Descent, have been repackaged in a smaller box. Tide of Iron was a game with miniatures, little plastic tanks and plastic soldiers. It actually had a neat concept where you could make a squad of guys, and whatever guys you put on the little plastic base were the guys that were in that squad. It was a tactical-based game. It was, I would say, medium complexity. Now, of course, when I say medium complexity, we're looking at it on the war game scale, where medium complexity can be considered upper complexity for many people. The rule book was, it wasn't that difficult, but there was a lot going on in the game. It took a while to set up lots of pieces and terrain, and you put there's different boards you put together. They came out with a couple expansions for it. It came out around the same time as Combat Commander, which is a very popular wargaming thing from GMT, which had some similar feels. And I think that in the long run, I don't remember what I said at the time, but I think in the long run I like Tide of Iron better because even though Combat Commander probably had slightly better gameplay, I have to go with the visual effect of seeing the miniatures on the board. Moving around a little piece of cardboard just isn't the same, although Combat Commander is very good. The tactical thing of Tide of Iron was fun. So the reason that it's out of my collection now is because it just doesn't get played as much as I wanted it to. It's a great two-player game, but it was gigantic and just didn't have a chance to go to pull it out, and it took up a huge chunk of my wall. The reason it fell off my top 100 is because, well, I just didn't get to play it as much as I wanted to, and while I thought it was good, I found myself playing lighter, faster war games more often, like Memoir 44, which is much, much lighter war game, or Battle Lore, things like that. So I think it's a fantastic game, and I'm very excited because this year, Ares is doing the reprint of it in a smaller box. Not Ares, I'm sorry, 1A Games is doing that. 1A Games got the game from Fantasy Flight, and so they're going to take it and run with it because Fantasy Flight wasn't able to put their full weight behind the game, and 1A will probably do a better job at that because that's their main focus. So very much looking forward to see what they do with it. There was one expansion I never really did get to try with it, and I wouldn't mind delving back into that universe. So who knows, maybe we'll crack the top 100 again. Anyhow, that's Tide of Iron. Okay, so that's my one-hit wonder. Let's see what's next. Aha! Belgium.
Hi, I'm Boris Kuricki, and here's another Belgian game. Each player has two different robots, and the goal of the game is to use them to bring these crystals to their base. It's a programmation game. So firstly, you'll give orders to your robots, and then they'll follow them. But it's not the same as in Robo Rally. You have only one modification per turn, and the robots will re-execute the previous orders. So, your robots can move forward, turn left or right, they have little arrows to make this simpler, load and drop crystals, if possible in your base, or zap, The zap is like an attack to make another robot do what you want. You can also add a bunch of elements to make the game more difficult and funnier. Teleporters, rocks, blobs, mud, and so on. So in this game, everybody thinks in his own corner at first, but like in Small World from the same designer, the board is so tight that you'll finally have to take other players in consideration. Indeed, they can steal you, zap you, push your other robots, etc. Very thinky game, but easy to understand. I'll suggest you to check it out. 20 bucks.
Hey folks, today I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I heard some rumblings from on the internet from a few people, and I didn't want to be misrepresented here at the Dice Tower. At the Dice Tower, we review a lot of games. I think last year was 750 games that we reviewed around. This year, we'll probably hit the same number, maybe a few more. Now, if you notice, there's more than 750 games that come out over the course of the year. So how do we pick the games that we do? Well, we try to hit every main release that comes out if possible, and then the people who send us review copies obviously have priority over the ones who don't. We certainly get a lot of games, and even then, not every game what we want to play, it just doesn't happen. I made a policy, it was either early last year or late 2012, that we would no longer review Game Crafter games. To be more specific, that we would no longer review print-on-demand games, and that's mostly Game Crafter. Now, what Game Crafter is, they're a print-on-demand service. You are a person, you have a game idea, and a publisher doesn't, you don't want to take it to a publisher, or publishers don't want it, whatever. The reason is, maybe you want to just print out 3 copies of the game, period. Well, you can use the Game Crafter for that. You can go there, they'll make the game for you, they'll make cards, boards. As time goes by, their equipment is getting better and better, and the stuff is looking nicer and nicer. Some people use the Game Crafter to make themselves a nice prototype that they can then take and demo their games to publishers. But many, many people will take their game from Game Crafter and put it in Game Crafter's online store. I went and started counting the games at the store, and I passed 1,000. So there's over 1,000 games at Game Crafter. I think Game Crafter is an amazing website. I think it's very useful. I've used them myself in the past for when we were making prototype decks for Nothing Personal, and I think they are a fantastic prototype tool, and they're also very useful for people who are making indie games. If you want to get your game out there, there's a chance. You should go to Game Crafter and look through there's just so many different, you'll see themes and things there, something I complain about all the time. You'll see them there when they're nowhere else. So you say then, Vasel, why the animosity? Well, there really isn't any animosity against Game Crafter. The reason we don't review games from Game Crafter is because we had to draw the line somewhere. As I said, we're not getting enough games reviewed as it is, so we have to pick the big name releases and then other ones that meet our interest. The problem is that Game Crafter is a place that allows people to put their stuff out in the market. Fantastic, but there really is no gatekeeper. You don't need any kind of financial input of your own, and there's no one there to edit and develop your games. So a good chunk of the games on Game Crafter are horrible games. Now, again, you need to differentiate that between, I did not say all the games, I didn't even say most of the games, but a good chunk of them are terrible games. They've play tested enough, whatever. And so, you're kind of taking your chances. Game Crafter's wonderful. Many games on Game Crafter are unique, interesting, wonderful experiences. But we found in our experience when reviewing Game Crafter games that there was a very high noise to signal ratio, and that was really hogging our time for us to review a game that probably 3 or 4 people were going to buy anyway. Also, the secondary reason that we stopped using reviewing Game Crafter games was because a couple times we reviewed a Game Crafter game, and then the person went and took that review and used it to launch a Kickstarter for that game. And we felt that was kind of disingenuous since we charged it to do previews, although I have a couple previews I'm doing this week, actually, but you won't see many more previews from me personally over this coming year. Ryan and Dan will be handling that from now on. But so that kind of soured us a little bit on the experience. So I think Game Crafter is fantastic, but again, we have to draw the line somewhere. Maybe if I had a reviewer who wanted to come on staff and they wanted to be someone who all they did was review Game Crafter games, I would be amazed if we found someone like that. I'd be delighted, and I would certainly post their stuff on our channel. So if something like that happens, perhaps. But for now, that's just the way it's going to have to be. But again, a fantastic site and a great resource, Game Crafter.
If a designer gets one new game design published a year, that would seem pretty successful, wouldn't it? Well, not if you're Stefan Feld. With the amount of games Stefan had published in 2013, I don't know for sure, but Stefan may be skipping out on some of the mandatory 4-week vacation time in Germany to design more games. So let's see what you know about the man, the myth, and the legend. First off, how many new designs did Stefan Feld get published in 2013? A. 0, B. 3, C. 5, D. 2, or E. 4. And the correct answer is E. 4 games. In comparison, Uwe Rosenberg had 3 new games, Martin Wallace had 3 new games, and Tom Vasel published 1. Bora Bora and Bruges were 2 of Stefan Feld's published designs in 2013. Can you name the other 2? Hopefully you remembered Amerigo and Rialto, because that fills out Stefan's 2013 lineup. Pretty impressive. Stefan's got to have a process to designing this many successful games. According to a 2011 interview with Andrea Liga, what does this process start with? A. Box size, B. Theme, C. Art, D. Mechanism, or E. Oversized orc miniatures. And yes, Stefan starts the design process just by focusing on a game mechanism. You can read more about it in Andrea's interview. Maybe after these 4 successful releases, it's time for Stefan to enjoy some much-needed vacation time.
The top 10 ways to tell you've become a Dice Tower geek. Number 10. You listen to Blue Peg, Pink Peg for marital advice because their wives play games. Number 9. You want to have a game night at Beer Mongers with the gang from Secret Cabal. Except for Brian, he doesn't like train games. Number 8. The long view is just not long enough. Number 7. Despite not being an official member of the Dice Tower Network, you still think Rodney Smith is a great guy. Number 6. Whenever you hear the phrase nothing personal from your non-geek friends, you think of the game Nothing Personal. Number 5. You made your own Merchant of Venus map so you can be cool like Eric Summerer. Super cool. Number 4. You think Tom Vasel does a great job reviewing games as a genius. But sometimes you think he's a little crazy because he doesn't like Kingdom Builder. And Kingdom Builder rocks. Number 3. You have the Flip the Table soundtrack. It also rocks. Bants. Number 2. You've made a video about the Dice Tower podcast and have serious questions about the decisions you've made in your life. And the number 1 way to tell you are Dice Tower podcast geek, because now 300 board games does not seem crazy, it's just the beginning. Happy New Year, and thanks for watching.
Well, that's a different top 10 list. But anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope that you guys, hope that Kickstarter starts today. Come on, Kickstarter, start today. But either way, guys, we do have a lot of cool content for you coming out this week. We're working as hard as we can to get it out as fast, and we're trying to always improve our quality. I was looking into, like, for example, the 24-hour gaming thing. I'm looking into the fact that, okay, one of the things in 2014, one of our goals is to get a 2-camera setup so we can do people and the game. I'm very excited about that. I already got my second tripod ready to go, and now I just need to get some wires and another camera. So that's stuff for the Kickstarter, but very excited about what we're going to see coming out this coming year. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching Board Game Breakfast.
To find out more about all of our podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. To see a listing of our videos, head to Dicetower.com. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cool Stuff Incorporated, where you can buy games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock.